Welcome to the Wealth Matters podcast, where investors come together to better understand how to build passive cash flow and create generational wealth without all the confusing mumbo-jumbo. Here's your host and co-author of Amazon #1 bestseller, Alpesh Pamar.
Welcome to Wealth Matters podcast. I'm going to talk to someone who is right now sitting in Uganda, and we are going to talk about how to invest internationally. Welcome, Nathan Amaral.
Thanks so much for having me, Alpesh. I really appreciate being on your podcast.
Absolutely. So before Nathan became successful in real estate, transacting millions of dollars in real estate capital, he had $60,000 in personal debt. Working as a retail manager, Nathan realized this path would not produce the kind of results he fiercely sought after. So through years of learning the rope of property investments, he closed his first deal at the age of 20 and began breaking out of the confines of his debt. So his business is called Fearless Millionaire. So I love that name. So I want to know more about what he does and especially how we can invest internationally. So looking forward to this episode.
Awesome. Yeah, great to have me.
Hey, so I always ask this question up front. Tell us something interesting about yourself.
All right. I'm really loyal. It's something people always ask me about. I'm really loyal to two brands, Nike and Apple.
I was going to say Apple. That's me.
When Apple brought in Nike as a partner and
that's it.
Nike watches, I was like even more in love. I was like, wow, like just I would say that's something that really interesting people. I wear Nike like all the time. It's pretty much the only thing that I wear. And so people, it's kind of a conversation starter. They always say, what's with all the Nike? And I say, oh yeah, that's all that I wear. I only go shopping on their application. They ship it anywhere in the world.
Yeah, that's
what I wear.
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. So another Apple fanboy like me, at least. Same thing. AirPod Pro, all of that. How did you get started in real estate?
Oh yeah. Well, you mentioned in the beginning there in my bio about $60,000 in debt. What I think most people don't even realize about that number is not the amount. Some people, 60,000 is like a blip, but at the time I was only 18 years old with $60,000 in personal debt. It wasn't a mortgage. It wasn't a car loan. Yeah, at that time,
that's crazy.
Banks were giving away money very easily that long ago. They were giving out credit cards. I had about $200,000 worth of credit cards available to me at the age of 18. And so I got a little crazy with that. I bought a bunch of stuff and I was put in debt. I basically was in this position and my ex-fiance's dad said, hey man, he knew the situation I was in. I was trying to make more money. And he pushed me a book and said, hey, if you want to succeed, if you want to marry my daughter, you got to read this book. And it was exactly.
See, I can guess. It's like everyone.
Good guess, Alpesh. That was exactly the book he gave me. And unfortunately, I didn't even read the book. Like I went back a few days and I gave him the book and he said, well, tell me about chapter 6. And I was like, oh gosh, like I didn't even read it.
Wow.
And so I was honest with him. He's like, if you really want to marry my daughter, then go read this book. And I did. I went back and I took extensive notes. I even read off the notes to him. We discussed more. And he's like, listen, you're working 3 jobs. You're 60 grand in debt. If you don't do something different, it's going to take, he even mapped out like how many years it would take me to pay off 60,000 in debt if I kept the same job. I had like 3 jobs. It was like mostly 1 full-time and 2 part-time jobs. It was crazy. He said, if you want, you have to do something different. He was the one that introduced me to real estate investing. He actually also introduced me to becoming a mortgage broker, but I got into real estate investing pretty quickly. And it took 2 years because I spent a lot of time learning, probably too much time learning about real estate investing rather than implementing it.
That's what people do now too. Because at that time, you may not have had access to Google or at least Bigger Pockets and all these podcasts and YouTube. Now people have access to this free education.
That's so true.
So they try to soak everything available. And then after a couple of years, if I ask them, oh yeah, we are still looking to buy our first property. I'm like, you mean you're cute piecing the boat?
Exactly. For me, one of the biggest things that what helped me to get into my first real estate deal was I hired a coach.
Nice.
I hired a coach that flew out to my area. He walked me through the properties. At the time, I was living in Massachusetts, and he walked me through properties in both Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And it just became real. But the most important thing he did for me, he's like, we're going to make offers on properties. We made 11 offers. 4 got accepted, but 2 I couldn't close on. So I closed on the other 2. And that made me, those 2 deals, maybe around $18,000. When I made that money, I said, this is all I want to do. And how do I do more of this? And that's when it became real. Like real estate investing became real to me at that point.
Oh, that's cool. So you started in Massachusetts, but then what made you switch?
Yeah. So
And where?
coming to that, yeah, that's a good point. Coming to that question, there's this concept in real estate investing. Like if someone's getting started, do you start like locally or do you start like virtually? Most people, I would recommend they start locally. And that's what I did too. I started in Massachusetts and then I moved to North Carolina, and I met a friend down there who's been in real estate longer than I have. And he was buying properties virtually. So he would buy them in North Carolina, but he would never go physically look at the property.
That's what I do, because living in California,
Yeah.
I can never buy here.
Yeah.
Not that they are expensive, but the numbers don't work. So
Right.
most of the time I have bought properties virtually since 2015.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I didn't have choice.
Yes. So I followed that same model where I was buying virtually. And so I did my first deal like 3 hours away, then 6 hours away, and then 2 states away. It came around 2013 where I said, I'm going to get out of the country for a little bit. I mean, I was already traveling extensively, but I wanted to travel back to Europe, and I had a friend over in Uganda that I wanted to meet in person. We were pen pals for so many years. And and so I was like, let me go meet my pen pal and go do that. Well, Apesh, when I got there, I mean, you would understand this. You're married, so you know that feeling of like when
you
just
met
had
the
that
right
feeling.
person.
Yeah. So literally, I get to the airport and I basically hug my pen pal, and literally, I was like, "This is the one." So I didn't say it right away, though. That would have been odd. But basically, I spent 2 weeks in Uganda. The day before I left to fly back to the United States, I went around, looked for a ring, bought an engagement ring, and then asked her to marry me.
Wow.
And she said, yeah. She said yes. Yeah.
Of course, you worked so hard for 10, 15, 20 years.
yeah. Exactly. So basically, I went back to the US. I basically sold all my personal belongings. I still had real estate there, which I still hold. And then I flew back to Uganda and kind of been here and traveling ever since. Europe and the United States, we go back and forth. So when I got to Uganda and I started continuing to do my business virtually and remotely, that's when it became international. That was my first transactions. I was doing stuff in Uganda. I was doing stuff in the United States and in Portugal because I am Portuguese. So I've done stuff. I've purchased properties in 3 different countries.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us about investing in Portugal while you were in Uganda and US.
So similarly to what you've done, it's a lot of virtual investing, but I have purchased properties in Uganda and in Portugal. Now, and the differences between the 3 countries is very simple. 2 words: capitalism and socialism. Portugal, I've never, like, even though being from Portuguese heritage and immigration, from my family immigrating to the United States, I never lived in a socialistic country. I've traveled there, been to Europe and different places, but when you're a tourist, you really don't feel it. When you live in it, it's very different.
Yeah, that's when you feel the taxes and all the lifestyle, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And I lived there for 2 years, and that's when I appreciated the capitalism and the capital available in the United States that's available to its citizens that most people take it for granted and don't realize it, how the flow of capital in the United States is.
And sorry to interrupt, but that's one thing you put it so right, that people always talk about, that we got to convert this country to socialism. Socialism doesn't work. Communism doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
This is why we have so much capital. This is why we are doing so good. If you give someone roof for free, if you give them food for free and medical care for free, why would anyone work? Why do I need to even work if I'm getting everything for free, right?
It's so true. And that's actually the attitude a lot of people have in Portugal, for example.
Oh, really?
If they, because a lot of them live on the social system. Because basically, on average, the government gives them about 800 euros per month. That's like good income in Portugal. Okay.
Oh, I think it's a great income.
If you work a job, you're basically making a little bit less than what the government's giving you. So
Of course.
people end up, why don't I just live?
That's exactly what
why
is
don't-
happening right now here, where you go for
Yeah.
hiring sign on Chipotle door, Panera door, 18 bucks an hour, and people don't want to work. When government is
Yeah.
giving me free money right now, all the money printing, why would I even go to work?
It's so interesting. And I'll tell you what, like being a part of 3 different cultures and 3 different
Yes.
societies, my favorite and most exciting is Uganda, because I've never seen so much building going on. Like
Yeah.
building. I'm talking residential market
Right.
at bursting at the seams.
Africa is the
Waiting
next
lists.
frontier. We all know,
Oh
right?
my
Asia
goodness.
is done, India and
It's
China is done.
right,
It's
right.
Africa. All of
Yeah,
the
man, it's
infrastructure, all the growth.
yeah, it's amazing. So that's been really exciting to be a part of that. I have to say, out of all the 3 countries, I think the most creative place to do real estate so far has been Uganda. That's because of low taxes on property and low regulation.
Can you give us an idea about one of the creative deal? Have you made it work? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the most creative things, like here in Uganda, is you can pay for speed, which is really nice. Like in Portugal, you cannot pay for speed. Okay. In Uganda, if you wanted like documents done pretty much like quickly, which in the US might take you, weeks or a month.
right.
In Portugal, it could take you like half a year. Here in Uganda, you could pay a small fee, which could be like 30 bucks
So
or
expedited.
50 bucks. And it can be done like the next day.
Ah.
Right. That's one of the things I really like about Uganda. There's always someone willing to get something done, willing to work, willing to make something happen. Everything is like very progressive and very, very deep entrepreneurial spirit. Everybody here, like even if they have a job, a secure job, they want to start a business.
That's
So
nice.
everybody's like self-employed.
Yeah.
They believe in capitalism. That's really exciting.
So
That's a really nice feeling.
What's the one of the question I asked you even before the podcast as well? What's the political scene look like now in Uganda?
Yeah, so it's a republic, and currently they have the same president that took them out of turmoil and war. They have the same president that's been there now, I don't know, 30-ish years. I think off the top of my head, like 30 years. And, the older generation sees a president that took them out of war and deep poverty to a booming middle class.
Right.
So it's kind of like the rhetoric is, hey, this guy's been in office too long, but the people who are voting for him want him there. Like they're the older generation who didn't have paved roads, didn't have tarmac roads, didn't have expressways. Right. So they see all this progress. Then you have a very young generation, like the 30-year-olds and below. They're definitely on the other side. I don't know. They're just, I don't want to call them rebels, but let's just say they are more, they care more about marching in the streets than actually going to the voting box.
Yeah, so the new generation, it's everywhere, right? They all want instant gratification. That's what I see.
Exactly.
They want everything fast, right? Because everything they read about something on Facebook and it happened in US, we want it here, right? So that's the difference. But one more question I have about investing internationally. What about taxes and regulations? Do you file your taxes here in US? How does it work? I'm pretty sure you are still an US citizen. And how do you figure that out? Portugal, Uganda?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, and there's a lot of technical stuff behind that too. Yes. But to keep it very simple, yes, I'm still a United States citizen. I was born in the US. And I'm also a Portuguese citizen. So I'm a dual citizen. Yeah.
And Ugandan most probably.
No. I don't have that citizenship yet. Okay. But basically, for anyone, pretty much watching this, if you're a US citizen, you have to pay taxes no matter where you are
exactly,
in the world.
Wherever you want.
It's a global tax
as an
system,
expat, right? Otherwise, you have to renounce the citizenship. That's what Peter Thiel and some others did, right?
Exactly. So you do have to, I pay taxes no matter which country I'm in. That's just part of the system. Yeah.
How can one start investing abroad? Like if I want to start investing in Uganda, like sitting here, what do you recommend? Or Portugal?
Well, I would recommend this to people. There's a few elements to this because you don't just want to, like, there has to be a reason why, right? Like, why would you invest in this particular country? So, and I wouldn't even invest in a place that's just booming. I'd invest in a place that you typically know. First, I always tell people, invest locally, get familiar with, like, if you're into rentals, then do them locally first, and then you can do it internationally. What I would share with people, because I've been asked this question so many times, is start in a market that you either you travel to frequently, like you enjoy vacationing there.
Yes,
like I know some people who love to travel to Costa Rica.
Yep.
So I say buy in Costa Rica, buy there, and then rent out a property, get into the rental business. You can visit your property when you're there. You can rent it out when you're not there.
And write off the taxes when you visit there. I know that's why a lot of people buy in Orlando, because they want to go visit Disneyland, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, and there's also people who want to, like, they travel to Italy or Spain, right? And they love it so much. Maybe they've been 2, 3, 4 times. Great. Buy the property and then have a property management manage the property for you. I've done that. I've done the short-term rental business. I've done a whole bunch of styles of real estate, but I still have short-term rentals in 3 different countries. It's a matter of, having management teams to manage the properties for you. Would I invest in a country I've never been to or like have very little interest in? No, I wouldn't. I don't care if the market is skyrocketing. I just wouldn't invest there. I have to have some.
If you're never going to go there, not worth it.
Yeah, what's the point? Right.
So, give us an idea about just the rental market or short-term rental market in Uganda or Portugal. How much do you pay for the property? What kind of returns have you seen?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you the most exciting one is Uganda, but I'll save that one for last. So Portugal is a tourism market. It's not a big manufacturing market. Mostly, other than Germany and there's some
a lot
industrial
of the European countries, right?
Yeah, very, very, very based on tourism. And so the market is steady, but it's not exciting. It's not an exciting market. It's slow and steady. Uganda is a very unique market because you have people who travel here for work, or they're traveling for short-term stays, like a month, 3 months, something like that. And then you have people who are here for work for like 6 months to maybe 5 years or 4 years. The short-term rental market for them is amazing because you literally can rent. Let's say you want to rent a 1-bedroom apartment, and then you want to convert that into a short-term rental. You can easily rent something out for $1,000, turn it to a short-term rental, make $3,000. So you can make about a $2,000 spread on something like that. That's kind of average right now.
Got it. Okay. So one more question I have: pros and cons about investing internationally from your experience.
You said it earlier, taxes and regulation.
Yes.
I got a big learning curve in Portugal where it was, taxes are insane in Portugal. They'll tax you just for air. It feels like you're just breathing and they're taxing you. And that's really important. Those are the 2 most important things: is know what the taxes are, know what the regulations are, because they're going to be different from country to country. Like I said, in Uganda, there's less tax and less regulation. So for example, when you buy a property in Uganda, outside of the capital, you only pay tax 1 time on that property, 1 time, and it's very low. That is something that could be very beneficial, where, for example, in the US, you pay taxes every quarter.
And can you talk about the gotchas, like what not to do when starting to invest internationally?
I would say what not to do. Oh my goodness. Don't trust the first people that you come in connection with. Like, don't just call a company online or.
So I shouldn't trust Nathan, right? About investing in Uganda.
Yeah. I mean, what you really want to do is don't just like go to one source. You got to interview a lot of people.
Right, of course.
There's forums out there these days, the Facebook groups. I would recommend like hearing from other people's experience first before like going straight to a company or an organization that's just going to promise you something. And maybe they do good service, but I would definitely get referrals before you just step into a brand new market like that.
I agree. No, this was great. So let's take a quick break. And after the break, I'll ask you the same questions I ask everyone.
You're listening to the Wealth Matters Podcast. The Wealth Matters Podcast. For more info about what we do, check us out at wealthmatters.com. It's wealth, WEALTH, matters, MATRS.com.
Welcome back to Wealth Matters Podcast. Nathan taught us a lot about Uganda and Portugal and how investing internationally works. Nathan, are you ready for fire round?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, let's go. Would you be changing any business or investment strategy after this pandemic is over?
Yes, actually, one of the things I am changing is getting more into senior care and assisted living. It's just a growing niche. There's a wave coming.
Yes. It's called Silver Tsunami. Yep.
Yeah, Silver Tsunami. Yep. Yeah, I think that's probably going to be more of my focus into the near future. So I've started selling off and reducing the amount of short-term rentals we have in the market just to provide more focus.
So would that be in Uganda or Portugal or US? Because we are already doing this in US. We are
Okay. Yeah.
building a brand new facility right now, a senior housing facility for ground up construction in
Okay.
Iowa market. And so I'm focusing
Okay.
on that and mobile home park with,
Yeah.
some crypto mining. But what's
Oh,
your
cool.
plan? Is it US, Uganda, Portugal?
So actually, it's just two markets right now. Is Portugal. I just myself finished acquiring. I didn't build from the ground up, but I acquired a senior care facility,
Oh,
and I
okay.
put a tenant in the property. In Uganda, I'm not building senior care, but I'm consulting with someone who is, and
Okay.
they know the model that I have in Portugal, so they want to duplicate that model. So I've been doing consulting for him.
That's very interesting. So Silver Tsunami, I thought was only US, but it's happening all over the world.
No, yeah, it's global. Yeah, definitely global.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I got to start looking. So favorite real estate or finance or any other related book?
I really liked, and I know it's in the Robert Kiyosaki line, but I really liked the cash flow quadrant
That's a better
because
book,
that,
actually.
yeah, it
No
really
doubt.
is. To me, that was the eye opener
Yeah.
from helping me get out of my jobs into business. That to me was even better than Rich Dad Poor Dad, even though it's not as highlighted, but it probably is even a better book than Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's that's a great read.
Actually, Rich Dad Poor Dad is a great starter,
Yeah,
right? But the actual meat is in cash flow quadrant, and I love cash flow quadrant as well. Actually, I'm trying to move from that S to I now, right? So I, from the self-employed to investor.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's been interesting. Any tool or website
awesome.
you recommend for your investment journey? Let's say for international investment, what kind of websites one should look at? Like if it's US, I know Zillow, Trulia, Airbnb. There is something
Sure.
else.
Well, yeah, I would say a few softwares that come to mind specifically in the US. PropStream is a great
Yeah.
software for investors. Yeah, that's a great software for looking for deals. Also, if someone's interested in the short-term rental business and expanding that in the US, by the way, there's a website called
DNA. Yeah.
airdna.co. You know that one?
Yep.
Yeah. That's a great website. Very pulls in a lot of data. Now, for the international market, first of all, Uganda doesn't really have those real estate services online. It's a very word of mouth business, which is what it used to be years ago, before we had the internet. It's like that. The funny thing is, they skipped the telephones in the walls. You know what I mean? Like regular
Of
old
course, the
phones.
actual phone.
So they're very advanced on smartphones and
Right.
mobile
A
technology
lot of
as well as.
African countries, that's what happened.
But when it comes to like real estate and posting a listing, they have classified sites, but that's about it. So I couldn't give you any resources here. But in Europe, I believe if I'm correct with the name, I think it's called Cedars. Cedars in Europe, I believe it's a great opportunity to post real estate if you're raising capital for property.
Okay.
So Cedars is a great resource for the European market.
Any advice for beginner investors?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, actually, most of my clients that I work with are beginners. And one of the most important things I tell them is exactly what I've been through. Stop learning and start doing.
Yes.
It's this constant learning of education. Don't get me wrong, education will take you to another level, but if someone has been studying for more than a year and still hasn't acquired or like made their first offer or gotten their first property under contract, those are the kind of people I say, listen, you need to do something different. You need a coach to help you get something done.
Got it. How do you give back?
How do I give back? Well, recently I say I've done so many things in giving back. I'm a big believer in the law of reciprocity. Right now, one of my biggest things is twofold. I sponsor a lot of kids' education in Uganda, so to keep them in school. So sometimes for some families, they can't pay tuition fees to keep their kids in school. So I did a whole like charity and donations. I do a bunch of that to keep kids, raising fundraisers to keep kids in school. I really like to find a few people that need a lift up when it comes to getting started in business. And I like to add value to their life and give them free consultation to help them get in and grow a business. Those are some of the ways that I give back to my kids.
That's awesome. How can my listeners reach out to you?
Sure. Yeah. Well, they can check us out on, we have a YouTube channel. You can go to Google and type in Fearless Millionaire, which that brand basically helps people overcome doubts, fears, anxiety about getting started in real estate. Or they can go to fearless-millionaire.com. And we have resources on there. And then you can also book a call with one of my team members for some help. Yeah, thanks for having me here. Great.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Wealth Matters podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes so others can enjoy the show too. Have a great week and happy investing!